NIL regulations running through the state legislature in Utah, now on their way to Governor Cox's desk. And I just simply say, why are politicians getting involved in NIL? You know that the NCAA essentially was gutted in court. They have no ability, and Charlie Baker has told his constituents at NCAA universities that they will not be opening new enforcement action or enforcing, regulating in any way, shape, or form NIL deals. So, of course, we have the state of Utah, one of the most dysfunctional states with the least amount of correct priorities, putting into effect legislation starting May 1st that reinstates all NIL regulations. It's wild to me, and I just don't understand why we continue to press down on kids. Every university, certainly any major P5 university, has a set of NIL regulations where it's things like tobacco, guns, strippers. Those are not NIL eligible. And universities like Utah, who is one of the most prestigious universities in the country, certainly would not allow one of their student athletes, as I think we already know and they have said, to run afoul of the law and endorse, like, one of the things that this new legislation in Utah says is you can't have an NIL deal that deals in guns you are not allowed to have. Really? Well, thankfully, we have that as a law in the state of Utah. That's the level of ridiculousness that we have sunk to when it comes to NIL. Jake, does a state legislature have any business being involved in NIL?
I don't think so. I mean, I think the unfortunate part about NIL right now is that it's gotten to a point where it's obviously going through the court system, and we have all these legal battles, which typically in life means that politicians are going to get involved in some form or fashion. And so, no, I mean, I don't think local or state level politicians should be involved in this. I understand the logic behind, potentially having some federal legislation around this just to kind of make a standardized, hey, this is what's allowed, this is what's not allowed. This applies to everyone across the board. It is what it is. I get that. I understand that. But the problem is again, I feel like this is the unintended consequences portion of the conversation from last week, where it's like, all right, cool. We got our TRO, and we're putting a pause on discipline and investigations, and you guys can just be out here doing whatever you want. And now the problem is we didn't think about the fact that, okay, well, state legislature is just going to roll out legislature that matched what the NCAA rules and guidance was pre-ban. Pre-pause on discipline. And I think that's what nobody's considering. And yeah, I do think it's a little ridiculous when we write into bills, yeah, well, you can't have NIL deals with a gun shop if you're not allowed to own guns, or if you're not allowed to own this type of gun or that type of gun. Well, obviously, dude. Obviously, kids aren't about to go out and do an NIL deal with Buddy on the corner who's been their weed guy for 5 years, right? They're not doing that. They're not. That's not the whole point. Where you're talking about doing NIL deals with, the old example is, car dealerships or whatever businesses.
No. The Monty Show.
The Monty Show.
Jake Retzloff joins us on an NIL deal coming up at 7:30.
Right. And so when you look at that, Jake now, well, he's at BYU, private institution. Okay, he wouldn't have to report.
But even BYU has NIL standards. You can't have an NIL deal that goes against the honor code. So you're not going to be able to have an NIL deal for tobacco or caffeinated beverages. Okay, great. Do I need a state legislature to write that into their law? I don't. I think this is a complete farce. I think, and again, I'll put it back up, which bans promoting alcohol, marijuana. Yeah, because we're going to have NIL deals with a dispensary. Dispensaries essentially are not allowed to advertise, right? Like, the only place you see dispensaries is on billboards. Do you hear dispensaries advertising on the radio? You don't. Do you see them advertising on TV? You don't. There's a reason for that, right? Like tobacco products, e-cigarettes, vaping, controlled substances. All right, here in the great state of Utah, where the legislature will do nothing about the opioid crisis. Absolutely nothing. They will do nothing. Well, here's Jimmy the quarterback for your local Corner Connect for, your opioids. I mean, we see those deals
all the
time, right?
Yeah.
No, we don't. We don't. We don't see. Do we really need a deal in the state of Utah to make sure that a football player isn't endorsing a strip club?
I think that's the part that's rough.
What are we
think
doing?
that this. So because this bill is a Utah thing, a state of Utah thing, I think it's very fitting, right? Like this is right up the alley of, hey, we need to write bills for every little thing in this state. And we're only
except homelessness and opioid crisis.
Right, except the actual problems in the state.
Correct.
We're just going to try and control everything that people want to do who are not addicted to opioids. But because you're addicted to opioids, we're going to continue to allow you to be in that position. So, I didn't love this when I saw it, and I think there's a ton of hypocrisy in it. I think I think on the heels of, as far as the legislature is concerned, on the heels of our Ryan Smith conversation, and the whole situation around the legislature being a bunch of guys who are all friends that play in the same sandbox. Like, this is just right up that alley. Like, hey, there's an opportunity to restrict kids and what they can and can't do. Man, we better make sure that you can't do NIL deals around controlled substances, as if anybody had thought to do that, as if that was some like raging issue in our state. We damn well better prevent people from watching porn unless they're willing to put in an ID on a website, as if that's some raging issue, as if that's like high up the totem pole of issues in the state of Utah. That's my problem with this.
And the other best part about this is that it talks about how you can't, have an NIL deal with a gambling company. So I don't know if you know this or not, gambling's illegal in the state of Utah. Like, can't do FanDuel, can't do, that. We're partnered with, Prize Picks. How'd you do on Prize Picks last night?
Great.
Oh, yeah, I won again. But the point is, promo code Monty, we work with a company in Prize Picks that should dominate in Utah. But the gambling laws are so restrictive that most people are like, you can't do Prize Picks in Utah. Yeah, you can, actually. You can. I don't know. I love, and most of you know, we do this show from Salt Lake City. I love living here, but this state is broken in so many ways that this is just so stupid. What this package does is essentially reinstate and take another step to the NIL rules that were just ruled, illegal, essentially, by a judge who put in a preliminary injunction, to which the NCAA said, yeah, we're not going to fight that
because it's illegal.
So Utah turns around and puts in the exact same package of laws to make sure that kids can't make whatever money they want. Oh, it's $601. Yeah, you got to run that by your school. Do you really think NIL deals are not being run by their athletic directors, football coaches? There's not a kid that plays on a D1, especially in the P4. There's not a kid in a P4 program that doesn't go to his coach and say, hey, I'm thinking about doing this with dickhead car dealer over here. Every single one of them do it. This again is government that's over governmenting.
Well, and I think they did this to take a victory lap. They wanted to say, hey, we're protecting the kid, and we don't want them to get into anything that they shouldn't be into. Well, who's deciding what they should and shouldn't be into? Right? Like again, when you guys were all kids, did you have your governments telling you what you should and shouldn't be into? Oh, that's right. No, you didn't, because culture was different back then. We didn't have, local legislatures telling us that we can't drink full strength alcohol, we can't drink caffeine, and we can't do NIL deals around weed, as if weed is killing people, right? I don't smoke weed. I don't do weed. I've never done it in my life. But I'm not going to sit here and look at this bill and be like, yeah, wow. No, there's no irony in this. There's no hypocrisy.
This is the same guy who wrote this bill. And I don't know why this popped into my head, but I just tweeted, searched it. This same guy, Jordan Tauscher is the representative's name here in Utah, that last year put forward legislation to stop kids that are undocumented from participating in sports. Does not. Why are we taking kids who already struggle with access issues? And that's every kid, undocumented, a citizen of this country, already struggling with access issues, and telling them, yeah, we're going to take more access away from you. We're going to decide how much money you can make. We're going to decide who you can partner with. Why are we doing that? And the answer is, I have no idea why we're doing that. I think it's just what we like to do. I think it is, and I shouldn't say we, I think it's what politicians like to do. That's truly my opinion, is that politicians only care about putting tallies on their scoreboard, taking victory laps. That's what politics has become.
Look what I did.
And I know that you guys hate it, but sports and politics run right next to each other. This is, again, look at Colin Cowherd yesterday. Colin Cowherd yesterday went on an unbelievably bad rant against politics and Fox News on his show yesterday. It was wild. And you can't get away from it. But it's bills and laws like this that I just don't understand.
Yeah, I mean, I don't get I guess I don't understand why politicians are so hungry to be in the NIL conversation. Like, you would think that they would be looking to take victory laps on other stuff, more pressing matters, things that could, affect a ton of people. I don't feel like NIL, generally speaking, affects a lot of people. It only affects the athlete and any business that they would be potentially looking to do a deal with. And that's not a ton of businesses, because NIL is an expensive game. I mean, you look at, again, obviously the Jake Retzloff interview on our show is an NIL situation. But if you look at like, again, car dealerships or whatever the case may be, Beats by Dre, or, whatever it is, those are hundreds of thousands of dollars deep for NIL deals. Those are not like just little, hey, here's $5, right? Like, that's not what this is. So to me, I just don't feel like NIL is something that's affecting hundreds of thousands of people. NIL is affecting, a small sector, in my opinion, of athletes in college athletics, not only on the football field, but in other sports. And it has not yet bled into everybody's pockets in terms of athletes. Like, we've yet to hear about some Cinderella story about how some mediocre bench player got a great NIL deal. We're not hearing about that because it's not happening. Again, NIL falls right under the same umbrella as capitalism. Businesses want to attach themselves to the biggest brands in the biggest sports so that they can bring more customers through their door, through their website. That's what they're trying to do. And I have no problem with that. I just don't understand why legislature feels the need to get involved. It's such a simple concept. Nobody's dying from NIL. Nobody is ruining their life. Nobody is, like, it's ridiculous to me.
Yeah, at least it puts their names out in the public and we can vote against them. This is exactly what you talked about. This is the same state that said, hey, if you want to watch porn in our state, you have to give the company providing the porn your ID, and they get to hold it for you.
Yeah.
Like, I'm not a guy that watches porn. I don't defend pornography. I think it's the great destroyer of men, as I've said on the show. I don't want any man, whether you watch pornography or not, I do not want you giving your ID of any form to a company that generates pornography. That you're dumb if you do that.
Yeah.
I don't know how else to say it. You just should not be doing it. And I shouldn't be surprised, but I am. I shouldn't be surprised.
You really shouldn't be.
But I am. And I want you, I'm begging you to vote. What elections do you vote in? We just talked about this
presidential elections
in the vaunted pre-show meeting.
Yeah.
So did you vote against this dickhead Tauscher in the president?
Not.
Oh, that's right. Because you don't vote in state elections. Vote in your local elections.
Yeah, you know what the problem with that is? I didn't even know the local election was going on this week. I had no idea.
You should read your mail.
Well,
should read your mail. Honest to God, this is the issue, is that we have state elections and nobody's aware of it. This guy's up for re-election in June. I'll be voting against him because I just think that this is such ridiculousness. And am I wrong? And I'm open to the idea. This is just my opinion. I'm open to the idea, and I think you guys know we value your opinions on this show. Am I wrong about this? I feel like, point blank, this legislation in Utah is overreaching, and I mean not a little bit. He didn't put a fingernail over the line. He put his whole goddamn self over the line with this. And the state just followed right behind him. Just followed up right behind
because
him.
Again, I think that local, or state level legislature is all sales. That's all it is.
Yeah.
And obviously federally, at the federal level, of course, yeah, you got to sell people on what you want to do. But I think, at the federal level, there's so much politics involved in every bill that goes through that you're essentially just bartering and trading things to get things done. At the state level, I feel like it's a much smaller situation. So it's all about like, hey, this is why we should do this, and you're just selling yourself. You're selling the legislature you're trying to get through, and clearly this guy's got sway in the legislature. And so yeah, I mean, I will pay more attention to local elections. Yeah, I will. It is what it is. I can come up with a bunch of different reasons, and you'll say, hey, it doesn't matter, you should still vote, which is true.
And I would point out he's a graduate at BYU. He got his JD from BYU. He went to the Reuben Clark Law School in 2012, graduated. And he is LDS, and he is fully in the community here.
You have religious folks making legislature.
And he, I want to understand it. I don't.
And he's going to run on the fact that he's LDS, guaranteed.
Oh, I am certain he will. I am certain that he will, and I will vote against him happily. As a registered Republican, I will vote against this individual because this at some point, and again, I know that we throw around the phrase "freedom isn't free." Freedom is not free. We don't have young men and women defending our country in foreign waters right now, like this whole. Anyway, we don't have young men and women giving their lives, dying on battlefields for generations, to restrict their fellow Americans' ability to make money. It is a thing where in this country, especially politicians, want to talk about how freedom, and they're fighting for freedom, and they're out here defending your freedom. To do what? To do what? Can I smoke weed? Can I gamble? Can I watch pornography? Can I, like, all the stuff? Can't do it. Can I do a car deal? No, you can't. Well, you can, but we're going to have to approve that. Can I get my own t-shirt? Well, you can, but we're going to have to approve that. We don't have freedom in this country. We don't.
No lotto.
Can't. Yeah. Another thing we don't have here. We don't have the lottery in Utah. I'm just a little fed up. I love the things. I love the things that are great about Utah. I love the parks. I love the land. I love mountain golf.
Yeah.
I love a lot of things here. Politics and religion in this state are horribly flawed. And if you think, and I think this goes for most of our country, if you think you have freedom, you are completely wrong. You are completely wrong. I am telling you now. I'm a guy that votes in my local elections. Mrs. Monty and I were talking about this young woman running for senator in our state. Like, I'm telling you, if you don't vote in your local elections, you do not complain about your freedoms. You need to vote for your council members. You need to vote for your state senators, your state congressmen. You need to vote. You need to talk to them. You need them to understand where you're coming from. And again, I'm just going to say it's millennials and Gen Zers who just don't give a shit. They don't vote. They don't take part in the process. And we wind up with guys like this making NIL rules that clearly I don't think there's any way to spin this on the recruiting trail. How do you spin this? I don't know. If you're Kyle Whittingham and you walk into a Westlake Village California, Los Angeles, suburban Los Angeles quarterback kingdom. And you're trying to get a quarterback. And Lincoln walks into the living room and says, hey, we don't have those restrictive wacko NIL laws here at USC. Hey, we don't have those restrictive wacko NIL rules at Texas Tech. How are you going to defend that?
You're not.
You're not. You're not. You know. Welcome to the nightmare. A member for 7 months will kick us off today. How dare you block a potential bucked up NIL deal? That's what I'm talking about.
Well done. Levity.
But
Thank
see,
you.
the funny thing is, and yeah, I am really tweaked by this. I think it's complete garbage. I do. I think it's complete garbage.
Mm-hmm.
The funny thing is, like, Jake Retzloff is partnering with Big O Tires. Nobody's going to say two words about that. At BYU, you understand when you go to BYU, you're not doing a deal with Bucked Up. You're not. It is an institution run by the LDS Church, and they do not advocate for caffeinated beverages.
Yeah,
it is part and parcel of their religious belief. I don't have any problem with that. You know that walking in the front door. But what about the senior? What about Cam Rising at Utah when this bill takes effect on May 1st? Got to get every one of my NIL deals approved. Well, okay. But yeah, we don't like Ken Garff. We're going to have to send you over to signers. Sorry.
What if you wanted to do a CBD deal, right? Because this has always been the debate. Hey, well, the bill says can't do marijuana deals. Obviously, CBD is not marijuana. But it's in the same family. So where are we at on that, right? Like, it's those fine lines.
Yeah.
Where if I'm a player, I'm like, yeah, this may not be a good idea.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't know. And you guys be the litmus test. If I'm making too much out of this, please feel free to get involved in it and tell me so. I am somebody that believes we have to share opinions on stuff like this. I think it's really important. And it would not surprise me if most people were, Yeah. Yeah. I don't know. Let's see. Mark Hales. He is in your House Senate district. It's not, you won't vote for it. Yeah, I won't vote for him. I won't vote for him. There's not a, and listen, Mark Hales is a local politician here in Utah. Are you in favor of local legislation, Mark, for NIL? Like, this is what I need to understand this stuff.
Yeah, I don't know why we need it. That's the problem. I'm struggling to understand what it, like in the pre-show meeting, behind the scenes, top secret, meeting. You asked, what was the point of this? What were we trying to accomplish here? What was the why behind this? And to me, the why, based on what's in here and the timing of this, the why is they wanted to win. That is what it says to me. You wanted to be able to say, hey, we got NIL legislation done in a time when there's no NIL legislation. And we want to provide a framework for other states. We're protecting your kids. Right? Like, we're protecting the kids. That's what this is.
It's wild to me. It's wild to me. I am just, please, I am begging you to vote in your local elections.
And then what are you going to do when fresh NIL legislation comes out that's higher than you? Are we going to strike this down then, or? And
again, no, I'm not going to talk about Republicans. It is frustrating to me as somebody that's registered a Republican.
Yeah.
I grew up in Reaganomics. I grew up as a Republican. When did we start being so restrictive? Like, it's wild to me. Anyway, James, Oak State James, good morning. Monty and Jake, come to Texas.
Okay, I will say, Texas, and I love you guys, Texas has its own set of issues, to put it nicely. The type of money that you cannot spend to get a really nice house there is pretty ridiculous.
It is. Plenty of tacos, barbecue, football, SEC, Big-12, ACC football, September 28th, FSU at SMU. Beyond the fact that it's hotter than piss water in Texas.
Dude. I'll never forget that. When we walked out of Jerry World for Big 12 Media Days, that was gnar.
Dude. But Yeah, Texas is great. Hero 75. What happens when a kid whose family themselves live in Utah, but they play in another state, makes an NIL deal in another state? Do they have to follow Utah laws since they live there when not in school? They do not. This is wholly about schools and NIL deals done in the state of Utah.
And hey, maybe that's the angle if you're an athlete, right? Like if you're on the Utah football team, hey, let's do out-of-state NIL deals with national brands that are trying to get into Utah.
You still have to do it.
Like
you still have it. All this is going to do is drive kids out of the state.
Yeah.
And we have here in Utah, those of you who don't know, Utah is a prolific football powerhouse. This state puts out fantastic football players, or did. Now they're going to go.
Yeah.
Now they're going to go to, my guy that went to USC,
Porter Gustin.
But hey,
yeah.
I'm just little old panic button Monty.
Little
old panic button Monty.
Trigger
you know
Monty.
Me. Trigger Monty. Tom Jean, politicians, you can't make an NIL deal with a company that didn't contribute to my campaign.
Exactly.
You're not that far off. Steve Wolgamott Jr. What's up, Steve? An example of how whack Utah is. I'm a loan officer, and to obtain my license in Utah, I have to do 15 hours of pre-education. Most other states are 2 hours or less. We have a lot of regulation here.
Yeah.
Which is great because anybody that's here will tell you, oh, California, what a joke. How about all that regulation they got out there, Monty?
Red tape.
Hey, Monty, you've never seen so much red tape in your life, boy.
Better start cutting, boy.
All right, cool. Well, I'm going to get my NMLS. I'm going to be a mortgage guy here. All right, here's your 15 hours of pre-education. My kid plays football. Yeah, good luck getting an NIL deal here, sir.
So like on one hand, I like it because it keeps people out of the state, but I just see stuff like this and I'm like, dude, like, what are we doing?
Do you really think people know the rules and laws of a state before they move there?
I don't think they know all the rules and laws, but what I do think they know is your reputation, and Utah has a reputation. There's no question about it.
Go black.
Go black.
You're free in America as long as you follow our literally 1 billion laws.
Yeah, right? Like, come on.
Mark Hales says, I'm not in favor of government control or regulation. Less is more. Less is get out. Like, I want less government involved in my life. Taxes, I get it. All right. Do you know how hard it is to pay your taxes online in Utah, by the way? I'm trying to pay my taxes. Right? Like, I'm trying to pay my state taxes. You can't log on. Anyway. Yeah, less is more. Get out of my life. OG Gary. Go Tigers. All right. I'll run for office and make sports gambling legal in Utah. Good luck with that, right? Good luck with that. Steve Stepanik. I'm from Kansas. We have a Republican river. You do. Mike Smith, not Reaganomics. It was trickle-down economics for those old enough to remember. I miss that Republican Party. And the truth is, not to go all political on your ass, but the truth is, don't identify as a Democrat or a Republican.
Seriously.
We're Americans. And until we get back to that philosophy, we're lost. We're out in the woods, dude. Like, we have to stop being Republicans and Democrats, and we have to start becoming Americans. We've lost that. We've lost that way. And again, you're seeing now all of the division because it's election season. You're going to see violence. You're going to see violent crime. You are going to see issues at polling places. You're going to see issues the day after the election. You're going to see it's going to happen because we're not Americans anymore. We're Democrats or Republicans. And
damn, if you're on the other side of that line.
Or if you're on the other side of my line. If you're a Republican, if you're a Democrat, you're both assholes, right? That's the way we've become in this country.
Yes.
And we're so worried about, well, hey, has that kid got documents? Well, he can't be on our soccer team then. Fix the homeless problem.
Yeah.
Fix the real estate problem in this country. Do you understand that the real estate industry is shrinking? Do you know how difficult it is to be a mortgage broker in this country right now? Have you thought about that at all? Like, we're shrinking and we're so focused on undocumented kids being allowed to play sports in the same state where we've got teenagers and young 20-somethings dying from opioid addiction every single day. Fent is such a problem in this country and right here in this state. But no, can't have those undocumented kids playing handball. You keep them out of my pickleball barn, boy.
For real.
Right? Like that's let's just be honest and say that's who we are. That's who we are in Utah. That's who we are right now. Giggity says, "OG, I'll move to Utah only to vote for you." I'll vote for you as long as as long as you disavow your LSU affiliation. Go Tigers.
And make the Monty Show the national show or the state show of Utah.
OG Gary says, "Appreciate you, Giggity." Yeah, can we get a proclamation, please?
Yeah.
Stepanik says, "Good morning, Monty." Hello.
Hey, Monty.
They do not trigger Monty.
Trigger. Okay, again, first of all, Steve.
Trigger Monty.
Steve, it's with a Y, not an E. Please. Okay.
Relax.
Trigger Monty.
Oh my God. Mrs. Monty has spoken.
Mrs. Monty.
For every man in here that says less is more, I really hope you uphold a woman's right to choose. What? Somebody get a fire extinguisher. She lit a match. But it's a great example. It is a great example. We don't do that either. Compulsory salty. Can you vote none of the above? Exactly. Amen, Monty. It's time to do what's best for Americans, not for the party.
Seriously.
Do you guys, I know this is a closely guarded. Did you check the age of the two dudes running for president? Do they represent you? They don't represent me. I'm going to have to vote for one of them. They don't represent me. They don't represent me. Now, does the president have a huge impact on your life? They don't. But you won't even take the time to vote in your local election. Are you registered to vote? How many people in here are willing to admit they're not registered to vote?
Mm-hmm.
Are you registered to vote?
Yes.
How many people here are willing to admit? Because the number of Americans that do not participate in elections is shocking.
Yeah.
Because it's laws like this one. We wrote a law and passed it overwhelmingly where we made it a law that we have to give our driver's license to porn companies.
Seems smart.
I said that did you say that out loud before this? You made it a law. And then when I asked you, because the guy came on the show who wrote the bill, I asked you, hey, who's responsible for making, the porn company's responsible for making sure that the documents are handled properly.
So,
right.
What you're telling me is that we don't really care what happens after. We just want another win.
And I'm going to go ahead and say, I'm going to go out on a limb here.
Careful, Trigger Monty.
I'm going to say that if you're somebody that is professionally making pornography, I'm going to wonder about your scruples, your morals, and your ethics. And pornography is so unscrupulous. You wrote a bill that said I had to give my license to prove that I'm old enough, but you wrote a bill that said I had to give that to unscrupulous people. Did you think this through?
Nope.
No, you didn't.
Nope.
You didn't. Mike Smith, there are no politicians who truly are for less government. They only want less government for things that fit into political ideology. I just think we need the president, our senators, our state legislatures reaching into our pocket far less instead of far more. Giggity, still waiting for these record-breaking corporate profits trickle down past the CEO pay. Oh, you idealists. Brandon Butler, this state has become absurd. They keep stepping into our homes. The theocracy is trying to protect us from ourselves in the name of our kids. I can raise my kids myself.
Seriously. That's what I'm saying.
Now, granted, I'm a bad example because look what happened.
Yeah.
But I think I will continue to rant against this. We don't have freedom in this country. We're not free.
And the hard part is living in Utah is great, man. Outside of this type of stuff, it's great. I mean, it's a beautiful state. There's a lot to like about it, but this type of stuff burns people out.
And Jimmy and Susan, who in Utah have 4 or 5 kids and probably work multiple jobs, how involved in politics do you think they are? They're involved in work, their kids, and sleep. And that's the reality of it. Do you know how hard it is? And then on top of that, like, do you know how hard it is to be a parent of a 10-year-old girl in this country?
Mm-hmm.
And then how difficult it is to be the parent of a 10-year-old boy in this country. And is it any wonder that we make their lives more difficult through laws and bills? And it's not. UW fan Jim, can a high school kid get an NIL deal from a local burger shack? Why not? Yeah, you can. You can, actually. Harry Austin, most Americans are in the middle who are lost in today's political machine. Totally agree. I agree with Chris. Vote none of the above. You can't.
Yeah, you don't have an option. The conversation is not vote none of the above. It's vote the least of the worst.
And exactly. By sitting on the sidelines, you're part of the problem. You're enabling. And I'm telling you, it is state legislature level that impacts your life.
Yeah, I mean, I think what you were talking about there is what happened to me. I mean, it's not that I was like, oh, I don't want to vote. It wasn't like, hey, like I'm intentionally choosing not to participate. It's more, hey, like we do a lot of stuff every day, and voting wasn't like priority number 1 on the things that we have to get done. And so what ends up happening is like what you talked about, right? Like we all work a lot, we all do a lot of things, and we get engrossed in life. And then you're like, oh, the election was last week or whatever. Like,
but you know the amazing part of it? Who wants to go to the mailbox?
Yeah, nobody. I
mean, when's the last time you wrote a check, dude? I can't think of the last time I wrote a check. Can't think of it. I can't tell you the last time I used a debit card, or all of my bills are online.
Yeah.
So there's nothing much that comes into my mailbox. Some of our partners write us checks and mail them to us. Okay. Other than that, what am I getting in the mail? Not good news.
Birthday cards.
Yeah, that's every once a year, but not good news. I get a bunch of junk mail.
Yeah, you get the Costco pamphlet with all the coupons in it.
I get coupons. I get, hey, Monty, here's a disguised envelope for Comcast Business that I drop in the shredder.
Yeah, don't you love those? The ones that are unmarked completely.
Open them up, drop them in a shredder, man. That's what happens. Like it's such a waste of time.
Yeah.
And the thing that I would, as a side, if you're marketing to consumers through their mailbox,
you're not marketing. Just telling you.
Good luck. Good luck.
If you're doing billboards, you're doing paper, you're not getting to who you want to get to.
Yep. I'm not a Democrat or a Republican, Gary says. I'm an economist. I vote based on economy. Economy runs all, but you don't know. I'm tired of hearing about us being in a recession.
Yeah.
And who's telling us we're in a recession? Politicians. And they keep pounding that message. We don't have a job problem in this country. We don't have an inflation problem in this country. Like, we have a real estate problem because you won't do anything about real estate. You won't do it. They won't do. There's too much money in the lobby. They won't do anything about it. And here we are. We're just going to continue to sputter along, and houses aren't going to get sold, and mortgages aren't going to get written. We're doing refis. Do you know right now? Do you know I was reading a study or a poll that talked about that Gen Z does not, the generation after you, Gen Z.
Yeah, Gen Z.
Gen Z and millennials.
Yeah.
Do not consider home ownership as part of their American dream.
Yeah.
And it's in the 70 percentile.
Yeah, it's not.
I just said that Gen Z and millennials, the future leaders of our country, do not view home ownership as part of their American dream.
But I think the why behind that's really important. It's not that we don't want that, right? It's not like, oh, yeah.
It's unattainable.
It's not like, oh, like owning a house is dumb or something, or it's an opinion thing. It is simply, hey, owning a home financially does not work for 9 out of 10 people. that are my age or younger because of the path they've been kind of trained to take. And honestly, like, just talking about like me, because I think it's an interesting comparison. Like, I'm just sitting here saying, even if you could afford it, I don't think it's smart to do it. I don't know anybody who's going to sit here and be like, yeah, let's sign up for 8%, 7% on a 30-year mortgage. And then what's going to happen is, and I saw this point the other day and I thought it was fascinating because nobody talks about this. What's going to happen is we're going to do all those refis. But what is nobody telling you? Nobody's telling you that by refining, you're going to pay more money on that 30-year loan than you would have by just simply paying the original 30-year loan. That's what we're doing to people.
Yeah,
we're hiding
it is. It is. It's wild to me.
So then you get NIL bills where you're like, oh yeah, this is great. This is great. We're protecting kids and everything's, kosher. It's like, no, it's really not. That's just how this state is run. And the problem is if you're not in the LDS community as a politician, you're probably not going to win anything. That's the problem.
Yep. Tom Dean for $2. Not voting at all equals voting for the winner. Yes, it does. Mark Hales, I did a consult with a mortgage broker and he hasn't done a loan in 18 months. You want to hear something crazy? It's funny you bring that up, Mark. I was talking to a mortgage broker the other day. This woman, do you know that she's making more money doing lashes and brow work? She's making more money doing lashes and brows than she is doing mortgage. She hasn't done a conventional in over a year. All the deals she's done in the last year have been refis.
Mm-hmm.
And now we were talking about it and she was telling me, hey, I'm refining some refis I did 5 years ago. Like, it's crazy to me how people are trying to find money in their homes.
So these kids that are affected by this NIL bill are the Gen Z people that you were just talking about.
Correct.
So we're going to sit here and we're going to be like, oh yeah, this NIL bill, no problem. But then 10 years from now, because they couldn't make NIL money because you restricted them, we're going to wonder and shame them for not buying a house.
And we're also going to tell them how bad social media is, which it doesn't have to be bad. We let it be bad.
Correct.
Right? Because there are teenagers, like, again, if you have a son or a daughter, put a golf club in their hand the minute they pop out of the womb.
Mm-hmm.
Do you know how much money golf influencers are making on social media right now? Do you know how much money lash and brow people? This mortgage broker I was talking to was saying she makes more money in the TikTok creator fund doing brow videos than she does on mortgages.
Yeah, and I think that what's so interesting is, again, for millennials and Gen Z, the money's in transactions, transactional business models. So yeah, obviously mortgage broker is a transactional business, of course, but it's not high transactional. It's not a 20, hey, I'm going to give you $20 or $100 to do my lashes, whatever it is, right? Everyone's different. But the point is that it's not that low entry level where you can help a lot of people and then you can make money by doing that. Obviously, being a mortgage broker is a process. It takes time. You're always 30 days behind that next deal, right? Like, so when she's like, hey, I haven't done a deal in a year.
And she's in her middle 50s, I would remind you.
Yeah, not like a new rep or something. Like,
she's not in her 20s or 30s. She's in her middle 50s.
So then you start
lash,
thinking
brow,
about,
and TikTok creator fund more than refis.
How is that situation for that woman going to work out with her retiring by, let's call it 65, just to be nice?
Yeah. Wasikowski, good morning to you. Monty is projecting again.
Projecting what?
What does that mean? Giggity. Mrs. Monty with the haymaker. She loves those.
She don't play no games, man.
Nope. Steve Stepanek, I vote. Thank you. You do not have to vote for either presidential candidate. You can vote third party depending on your state. But the problem is when you vote third party or you write in, what are you doing? It's what Tom Dean said. You're voting for the winner. That's what you're doing. You're look how close the last election was. I mean, we're talking about in this country, and I wish people understood this. Mobilize your voters at the local level because those are the ones that make a difference for you.
Yes.
I promise you, it's much like being a sports fan. You don't matter in Washington.
No. You
know how you matter in Washington? Don't vote for your senator if you don't like what he's doing. How is Mitch McConnell still employed? Like, the guy's walking dead.
Yeah.
And he just resigned.
By anybody's measure, that guy is not healthy.
Like, how was Dianne Feinstein still employed? How is Nancy Pelosi still employed?
Yeah.
They're 100 years old.
Yeah.
It's crazy to me.
And I think, the one final thought, the scary thing is, to me anyway, is that eventually the Trump-Biden situation is going to pass us. Right? Like, that's not going to be 100-year chapter. We're coming to the end here.
But look at Marge the other day. Marjorie Taylor Greene. Did you guys see this with a BBC reporter asked her a point-blank question, and Marjorie lost her mind.
Why don't you fuck off?
She said that to the BBC.
Why don't you fuck off?
Like,
why is that okay?
That's the next generation of politicians. That's who it is. Whether you like it or not, that's who it is.
Yeah.
And my struggle is this is now bleeding over into my sports life. And I'm good if I can just enjoy my NBA, if I can just enjoy my college football and NFL.
Golf.
I'm super stoked. Yeah, let me enjoy my golf. Let me enjoy my Chicago Cubs baseball.
Mm-hmm.
Let me enjoy the Bulls and Jazz last night in a slugfest.
By the way, what the hell are you doing by their bench, dude?
I don't know.
Like, come on. Be better.
Let me enjoy my sports. Don't legislate my sports, dick.
Yeah.
Like, I just want to enjoy my sports. Can't even do that.
Nope.
Can't even do that. It's wild to me. OG Salty says Australians get fined if we don't vote. I really wish people would vote.
Yeah.
I truly do. Dustin Osterman. Good morning, Dustin. You need an ID for porn, but not to vote. No, wrong show. Salty, we need that here as well. I don't know that we need to fine people. It used to be that going to the ballot box was special.
Yeah, it used to be presidential. Like, when I was a kid in school, I specifically remember during election season, like, it used to be a thing. Like, you would talk about it in class.
Yes.
You would talk about, like, hey, like, when are you guys going to vote? Let's vote together.
During
like,
the election,
used to be a thing.
When I was in high school, and granted, I was a debate guy and I was a political guy, but during the election, we used to have a class called civics. You might have heard of it, and it has nothing to do with Honda. We used to do debates. I remember Gary Ward was my civics teacher. I remember we used to, and I don't remember one specifically, but a local law would happen. And he would bring that to class, and we would do a week-long, write a bill, write a law, have a debate, pass or fail. And I used to love that. I think we did it twice during my time in civics, and I loved it. I loved debate class.
Civics class was not available to me when I was in school.
I loved civics.
Yeah.
I loved learning about voting. I loved learning about how government works, what local elections are. I will never forget, like, growing up as a kid in Chicago, the first time I met a mayoral candidate, his name was Bernard Epton. And this is in the 80s, mind you. And I was starstruck. Like, I loved Eddie Verdoliak, like the old Chicago alderman. Like, to me, politics is something that you should be as passionate about politics as you are about the Chicago Cubs. And I was. And the last 10 years, it just all goes away. And I don't know how you fix it. I don't know how you bring it back. Harry Austin, here's the hard truth. People that we need to run for office will not run because of all the BS that comes with it. Who wants to do that job? Remember when being a cop or a firefighter was, like, awesome?
Being a head coach in college football right now. What did Chip Kelly say?
What did Nick Saban say?
What did Nick Saban
say? All of you guys who were like, oh, you're full of it. Remember that argument we had like a month ago when Nick Saban retired? Look what Nick Saban finally said. Everybody, where are all the haters who said Nick Saban retired because he was too old to do the job? That's actually not the truth.
Nope.
He said our program here has always built was always built on how much value we create for your future and your personal development, academic success, and graduating and developing an NFL career on the field. And why did he say that? Because 70 or 80% of the players you talk to all want to know two things. What assurances do I have that I'm going to play, because they're thinking about transferring, and how much you're going to pay me. So again, go ahead and make the argument that Nick Saban didn't retire because of NIL in the portal.
Yeah. You understand? I understand it perfectly clearly. I think it makes perfect sense from his standpoint.
Chip Kelly yesterday straight up said being a head coach is too much. He talked about how he couldn't sit in positional meetings anymore because his phone wouldn't stop and he had fires to put out constantly. And he couldn't focus on player development. Couldn't focus on game planning.
It almost feels like major college football programs now. It almost feels like you need a guy that works with the head coach who answers all those calls.
And they're doing it. They're doing it.
Like if you're a head coach, like I totally empathize with guys like Chip Kelly and Nick Saban. Hey man, like you've been coaching a long time, and coaching's always been about developing the kid, taking the kid from A to B, and B hopefully means getting drafted into the NFL, right? But now that's not what it's about, because a new set of expectations has been set into these kids before they join your program. And so now you're dealing with this, and then you get all the phone calls, and you just, it puts you in such a bad spot. So that's what I'm saying. Like yes, it is issues like this NIL situation with the legislature are definitely at play. But I think the other scary part that kind of hides in the background in the shadows is the expectation that these kids have when they come in and they're saying, hey, I'm one of your best players on the roster. How much are you going to get me paid? That's a really tough question to be asking a head coach, because a head coach's job is not to get you paid.
I think that's why you're seeing so many of these programs now put in chief of staffs.
Yeah.
When did Lou Holtz have a chief of staff? Right? Like,
yeah.
You look at the way the game has changed. And I think Chip Kelly has talked about this too. You as a head coach can never turn your phone off. 24/7, 365. Literally 24/7, 365.
Yeah.
You cannot turn your phone off. And I think the savvy head coaches are learning, oh, my kid got arrested. Okay, well, that's on the chief of staff. That's your fixer.
Yes.
Oh, a water pipe broke in the locker room right now. All right, that's Jimmy's job.
Yeah, let's put the asset on standby, okay?
Oh, Kevin got an NIL deal with fans only. Steve, you're going to have to go handle that. And at some point, what happens? At some point, it all just starts going to Steve. And I think that's what you're seeing with Kirby Smart. Kirby Smart is very much insulated. And now that the NCAA had its balls clipped, insulating you is really much less of a problem.
Mm-hmm.
But you look at Jim Harbaugh. I'm just going to walk away and go to the NFL.
Yeah.
Jim Harbaugh needed a really strong chief of staff. Because again, not to keep making the comparison, if you're the president, how important is your chief of staff?
Crucial.
So aren't you the president of Michigan football?
Yeah. Well, and I think in a lot of ways, again, I've always believed this. In a lot of ways, the head football coach of any Michigan level job, right?
Yes.
You are, as far as the public's concerned, you're not the president of the football program. You're the face of the school, dude.
That's right.
Like you're not.
That's right.
Nobody. If I said, hey, who's the head coach of Michigan hockey or Michigan tennis or whatever.
Not only do you not know, you don't care.
You don't give a damn, right? So it's like, hey, if you're one of these head coaches in college football right now, you're whether you like it or not, if you're going to take that job, you have responsibility much higher than just the football program. So how do you not have a
Joey McGuire at Texas Tech.
Exactly. Precisely.
It was Pete Carroll at USC. And now is Lincoln Riley the face of USC? Not yet. But if he goes to the college football playoff and wins, that'll be the only thing you'll see. Because you don't know who the basketball coach at USC is. You know who the football coach is.
Why do we know who the basketball coach at Michigan is?
Well, because he's in trouble.
Well,
because he.
But you probably
assaults
wouldn't know
people
him
in
if
the
they were
handshake
just chilling.
line.
If they were just chilling and doing what most normal programs do, you wouldn't know who Juwan Howard is as a basketball coach.
Yeah.
So my
you're
point
exactly
is,
right.
like again, whether it's college football or otherwise, the red tape nonsense BS that you have to deal with is becoming too much for these guys. And yeah, Kirby Smart loves coaching so much that he's willing to put in more positions to filter the BS out of his life.
But even Kirby Smart, right? Kirby Smart, all SRT.
Yeah, first team all SRT.
Tanner
driving the
Plummer.
houses.
Tanner Plummer in our members only group put in a story about how Jalen Carter at Georgia had gotten a flagrant speeding ticket a year before that whole incident went down after they won the national championship and a staffer died.
Yeah.
He had gotten a ticket in his SRT, which, again, as pointed out in the group as well, if you're not a member of our members only content,
You're missing
crazy.
out. Yeah.
Our members only Instagram group is phenomenal. SRT stands for Street Racing Technology.
Yeah.
At Georgia. So Kirby needed a chief of staff. Speaking of which, Raider Trojan upgrades to members only content.
Let's go, baby. Hit me in those DMs.
Get DM Jake, SLC Jake on Instagram. He'll get you into our members only Instagram group, Raider Trojan. Appreciate you supporting the show. Thank you very much. Coming up in 20 minutes, 25, 30 minutes from now, Jake Retzloff, the starting quarterback at BYU, joins us. Is he the starting quarterback at BYU? I thought it was very interesting. Did you see the story that blew up yesterday about Jake Retzloff? And I know this, nobody knew this. He worked with John Beck over the offseason.
What?
Sports Illustrated did a big story about how Jake Retzloff and John Beck worked together last summer.
I'm for real.
Maybe you should watch the Monty Show.
Hey, Monty.
Talked about that last week. Eric and Raleigh. We have a greed problem in this country.
Jesus.
Jeez, are you kidding me? Yeah, we do. Baston Mapes. Mapes, good morning. I hate election years because of how ugly it gets, but I'll continue to stay optimistic with freedoms that I know I enjoy here that I wouldn't enjoy elsewhere. And it's true. Somewhere else, rather. It's true. We take for granted that we have plumbing. We have internet. We have Jack in the Box.
We don't have the threat of our house getting bombed.
We are not worried about the Houthis.
The mooks.
We're not worried about the mooks. We're not worried about, hey, is the government going to bomb me today? We're not worried about that in this country yet. And it's why I say it. And I know, like our TikTok bro that says the world's going to end by 2027. Hey, man, live every day like it's your last.
Mm-hmm.
And I think you should. Like Mrs. Monty, there's an update on the Subi.
Do not skip that update.
And justice for all.